Check these out, a bunch of KTM 2024 RC8cs all lined up in a row. Welcome everybody to the Portimao circuit here in Portugal. Behind me, you will see the 2024 KTM RC8c. It's no secret what these bikes are anymore. These are repurposed, if you will, Kramer GP2 motorcycles. If you know me, I have got plenty of time and experience and history with the Kramer motorcycles. I helped ride the prototype 790 engine-based GP2, which then became the GP2 890R and RR. The KTM RC8c is a joint collaboration with KTM and Marcus Kramer to take the 890R platform and tweak it a little bit from what Kramer offers. Like I said, we're here in Portimao. We are here to ride these bikes as well as some other KTMs, which we'll get to in other videos, which you can watch elsewhere on Motorcycle.com. But let's get into the meat and potatoes of what makes the KTM RC8c and RC8c and what's different for the 24 model year, which is also the third and final year for the RC8c, because as you know by now, KTM just announced the 990 RCR, which kind of makes this bike obsolete, but it doesn't, and I'll get to that real soon. So to break down what makes the RC8c and RC8c, let's go over there to that naked version and break it down. All right, here is the KTM RC8c minus the bodywork. It's all been taken off and you can see it's pretty bare bones. Let's get down to some numbers. So 135, 140 horsepower. I forget how much torque they're claiming, but a really nice amount. 138 kilograms, I believe. Somewhere just north of 300 pounds full of fuel. That's just a recipe for success and a lot of fun. How do we get there? Well, because Kramer and by extension the RC8c don't need to be homologated for street use because these are track only bikes, they can bring the weight down significantly by not adding lights, not adding beefy subframes to carry a passenger. You can use lightweight components, lightweight wheels, dedicated things that you can't necessarily do on a street bike. So we're gonna start right here. Let's start at the engine, like, you know, the heart of any motorcycle, right? So right there, that's the engine that's from the 890 Duke, but it's been heavily massaged. So you'll find different cams, different connecting rods, titanium valves, both for the intake and the exhaust, ported and machined heads, higher compression piston, very much similar things that you'll find with the GP2 RR from Kramer. The difference being the KTM uses the standard Bosch ECU. The Kramer uses the Medtronic ECU, which is the leading ECU in world supersport circles. The different ECU brings with it a whole number of differences and changes, which we won't totally get to, but know that that's where the main difference lies. Other cool things, you'll see the bespoke frame. That is not a KTM frame, that is a Kramer frame, specifically for this bike. The cool thing though is right here. That is the fuel tank and the subframe and the seat that you sit on. So this is a poly, I guess, molded plastic subframe fuel tank seat that is 3 functions in one, which really brings down the weight. It's about 3.8 gallons, I believe. And the fuel filler is up top, and that's the breather up top behind that. So the usual spot you'd see in a gas tank is right here, where the giant air filter rests. So we move to the front of the bike. Diamag UP7X wheels, 17-inch both ends, standard 120 front and 180/60 rear. 290 millimeter brake discs with Brembo Stylema calipers. The thing with the 290 millimeter brake disc, you'd think that's kind of small, but with a bike so light, that's really, that's really enough brakes for this bike. But the cool thing too is there's quick change little trinkets all over the place on the RC8c. It's a quick release axle that comes out. And then you can slide the disc forward once the axle is out. Slide the disc forward, rotate the calipers so they're out of the way, and you can take the front wheel off, and you need to take the front fender off, which is just held in place by a Zeus fastener on each side, and it snaps out. 30 seconds, no problem. And then you swing the calipers out, and the whole front wheel comes off, and you never have to take off the caliper from the mount. Super easy for wheel changes. As we move back, I already talked about the engine, the titanium exhaust with an Akrapovic exhaust on the end. Like I mentioned before, the WP Apex Pro suspension, fully adjustable compression, rebound, preload. Same thing with the shock. You got your preload knob there, compression, rebound. There's a dedicated linkage there. You can adjust the ride height at the shock level. And you can also flip the eccentric here to give it a different ride height and different swing arm pitch and angle as well, depending on how you like your motorcycle to handle. As we move back, you'll see the rear brake, the UP7X Dimag rear wheel, and the slick. The Akrapovic exhaust has the DB killer inside of it. There's different versions of the exhaust depending on what the customer wants, depending on their market and what racetracks they go to, if they have a sound limit or not. We were told that the Akrapovic with the DB killer in it actually makes more power than the wide open exhaust, so that's something to note. But the cool thing about Kramer's are all the little details. You'll see right here, this is a cap for the quick fuel release valve. The Kramer comes with a hose with a female end you stick into there, and it'll drain your fuel for you. Nice, quick, and easy. Then there's other things like this plate back here. In a crash scenario, Kramers are designed with crashing in mind because racing involves risk, and risk means crashing. These metal plates on the back are sacrificial plates, so in a crash, say you hit the ground hard with the peg and it shoves in. Normally with a production bike, it would smash up your swing arm right there and you're kind of hosed. This is a sacrificial plate. The peg will hit that plate, destroy that. 2 Allen heads, one there and one there. You replace that plate and you're back on your way. Easy peasy. This injection molded fuel tank is designed to flex and bend in the event of a crash and not burst. I've personally seen and ridden. My teammate crashed a Kramer with one of these tanks. You could see the impact marks from the tire hitting the tank. It held its structure, it held its rigidity, and we still won the race. Frame sliders, something of controversy, but these plates, people think that frame sliders will actually cause damage to the actual frame. That is not the case. These plates that the frame slider mounts to are soft and are meant to bend and deform in the event of a crash to prevent the actual frame from getting damaged. And of course, the frame slider itself is meant to be destroyed in a crash. The slotted holes for the 3 mounting bolts are designed to move around. So again, this gets damaged in a crash and not the actual frame. Moving up, you see the details like the markers for where you can position the bars, the markers for on both sides. The offset on the triple can be placed anywhere from 26 to 28 millimeter. That's really cool. The aim dash that can act as a data logger and has all the vital information on there as well. Coming over to the other side of the bike, you have the quick shifter both up and down, which works really nicely. A lot of the same things we mentioned already. The cool thing about Kramers, they come pre-safety wired, so you just gotta put gas in it and go. One more thing about the fuel tank. There's the notch in the fuel tank so you can actually access the compression and rebound, high speed and low speed compression, and the rebound settings for the shock in there. So that's the cool thing about Kramer Motorcycles and the RC8c is that there's a lot of thought that goes into these, and there's a lot of thought not just about how to make them go fast, that's obviously a big deal, but it's also how to make them last and how to make the ownership experience as easy as possible. The thing that Kramer understands is racing involves risk, racing involves crashing, and that's engineered into the motorcycle. Now, how does the bike ride? Well, I'll get to that later because I've only done one session and we have at least one more to go today at Portimao before I give you my full thoughts. But what I've noticed on the standard 890 GP2R with 1R is that pretty good torque, but it's just a standard 890 engine. It's kind of slow to rev. It's got good torque. It sounds great, but once you get up high in the revs, it kind of falls flat. And you can feel that power build and build and build and just kind of taper off. Still a fun bike, but you're left thinking, oh man, I wish that last like 2,000 RPM and there was some power there to keep on pushing me forward. That should be what's solved here on the RC8R and then also the GP2RR. Different cams, the lightened internals should help it spin up quicker and provide more power up top. So I'm gonna go ride around Portimao some more and I'll come back at the end of the day and tell you what it's like. Much more sensible bike already than a 1390. Holy moly. Oh, so much easier to ride. Oh, what a pleasant bike to ride. Oh, what a machine. Oops, too wide. So the thing I noticed about the RC8c, say, over a standard bike with the 890 twin, this one revs so much freer. And faster, which is a result of all the lightweight components inside the engine, with some nice overrev too. I love this motorcycle. So much fun. So easy to change directions because it's so light. Oh Jesus. What do I even say about this bike? It's so good. The power doesn't terrify me. I mean, yeah. Now we're going to try the RC8c with the eccentric and the swing arm switched to the lower position to see what sort of a difference that makes in the bike's handling. I think theoretically that'll mean it's a little bit slower to turn. The rear of the bike is slightly dropped, but we'll see. Mika Kallio was kind enough to let me take his bike for a spin. Bike feels different, but not in the way I thought it was going to be. The fueling seems a little wonky. Man, can I tell a difference? I don't freaking know, man. What a good bike you are. Holy moly. All right, if you couldn't tell from all my onboard videos, I love this RC8c. Oh, what a machine! So good. What a good motorcycle. So good. So good. What an absolute peach of a motorcycle. So light, so nimble. The power comes on just beautifully, and it's not too much and it's not too little. It's that sweet spot of just the right amount of power to have a ton of fun. And it sounds killer, doesn't it? It's just... hate to say it, but there's a reason why I bought a GP2. Because I can't afford this, it's almost $42,000. The GP2 is almost the same as this bike with a couple of little differences, and it's just that excitement factor that is so cool. The big difference though with this and then the previous versions of the RC8c and also the GP2, the thing I can really feel with the 890 engine in the RC8c is the lightened internals make this thing spin up so much faster and so much easier. And then it has that top end hit to really finish off the deal and just excite you like the previous versions couldn't quite do as well. the closest competitor I can think of it, which obviously would be the Kramer GP2 RR. They're so closely matched in specs, in performance, and everything. But the real takeaway here is this RC8c is an absolute blast, and it's so easy to go super fast on, which if you're buying one of these, that's kind of the point, right? Could I tell if these winglets really did anything? No. Come on, let's be real. But what was interesting was I did have the swing arm pivot changed for my third session on this bike. And even though it was a little bit more difficult to ride, I actually went a little bit faster with that setup too. Strangely enough, if this were my setup, I would actually put it back to the standard setting with the higher swing arm pivot. It's easier to ride that way, and I could find the time in other places. Not to delve into the weeds about how that all works, but interesting little observation. But yeah, as a total package, Kramer knows what they're doing. This RC8c is a reflection of that. And if you're lucky enough to throw a leg over one and ride one, you'll see why the price tag is what it is. I explained earlier in the tech piece, but it all comes together into a package that is so much fun and actually turns into pretty fast lap times too. It's so good. Anyway, what is left to say? This bike is absolutely awesome. It's hard to really fault much of anything on it. If I were to fault something, I wouldn't mind a more defined area right here on the fuel tank to bury my knees into, but sheesh. It's really splitting hairs, isn't it? Alrighty, y'all. If you're interested in the RC8c, go check one out. If you can, throw a leg over one and you have the bank account to do it, go buy one, because it'll put a smile on your face from ear to ear. And that's it. That's it from Port of Mouth. Thanks everyone for watching. Ride safe, ride fast, and as always, see you later.